The flickering glow of a television screen has a unique way of forging an unspoken bond between the faces on the glass and the millions of ordinary people watching from the comfort of their living rooms. For over a decade, reality television captured the imagination of the global public by turning the mundane, forgotten corners of everyday life into arenas of high-stakes drama and thrilling discovery. We welcome these colorful personalities into our homes week after week, celebrating their triumphs, laughing at their jokes, and marveling at their unique ability to find extraordinary value hidden beneath decades of dust and neglect. They felt less like distant celebrities and more like old friends, individuals whose unfiltered passions and gritty determination mirrored the hard work and resilience of the working class. When a familiar face from that world disappears, it leaves behind an abrupt and unsettling silence that reverberates far beyond the confines of Hollywood or the production studios. It forces us to confront the deep, often invisible divide between the vibrant characters we see under the bright studio lights and the very real, fragile human beings who must carry the immense weight of that fame long after the cameras stop rolling and the final credits roll. To fully understand the gravity of a sudden loss in the entertainment world, one must look closely at the fragile mechanics of modern media culture, where public adoration can instantly shift into an overwhelming wave of scrutiny. If you value deep investigations into the hidden stories behind the headlines and want to stay informed on the shifting realities of the cultural landscape, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and support our ongoing commitment to thoroughly analyzing these significant events. The journey from an ordinary, quiet life to becoming a household name is a path filled with unpredictable psychological challenges, creating a unique paradox where an individual can be celebrated by millions across the country while simultaneously feeling profoundly isolated within the quiet walls of their own home. This delicate balance between a celebrated public persona and a private, deeply troubled existence is a theme that plays out repeatedly in the modern era, leaving families, friends, and loyal fans searching for answers when the veneer of television success suddenly fractures. The shocking nature of these moments does not simply stem from the loss of a recognizable figure, but from the sudden realization that the struggles of real life are often far more complex and distressing than any produced television drama could ever portray. The desert landscape of Lake Havasu City, Arizona, is known for its serene waters, brilliant sun, and an atmosphere that typically offers a peaceful refuge far away from the relentless pace of metropolitan life and the intense glare of the media spotlight. Yet, beneath the calm facade of this scenic community, a profound and deeply unsettling tragedy unfolded on a quiet spring morning that would forever shatter the peace of a quiet residential neighborhood. On the 22nd of April in the year 26, the stillness of the early hours was abruptly broken by an event so shocking that it would soon command national attention and leave an entire community of television viewers in mourning. This peaceful desert enclave suddenly became the focal point of a distressing emergency response, as local authorities rushed toward a private residence, entirely unaware of the high-profile nature of the situation they were about to encounter. The transition from a quiet morning routine to an absolute nightmare is often instantaneous, leaving those caught in the immediate aftermath frozen in a state of absolute disbelief and raw emotional shock. The initial notification to emergency services did not come from a bystander or a distant neighbor, but from the individual closest to the heart of the unfolding crisis, a woman whose world had just been irrevocably turned upside down within the span of a single heartbeat. When the emergency lines connected to the Lake Havasu City Police Dispatch, the voice on the other end was heavy with a profound and agonizing terror that immediately signaled to experienced operators that a catastrophic event had occurred. In the raw and unfiltered audio recordings that have since been made public, the distress in the woman's voice is palpable, conveying a sense of helplessness that words alone can scarcely describe. She communicated the terrifying realization that a life had just ended, her words catching in her throat as she struggled to comprehend the sudden violence that had just shattered the domestic silence of the home. The immediate reaction to such intense trauma often manifests as a psychological barrier, where the human mind desperately attempts to distance itself from a reality that is simply too horrific to process or visually confront. As the emergency dispatcher tried to maintain a calm, anchoring presence over the phone line, instructing the caller to focus on her breathing, the sheer magnitude of the shock continued to overwhelm the distraught woman. She repeatedly expressed her total inability to believe what had just transpired, a sentiment that perfectly captures the surreal and devastating nature of sudden domestic tragedies. The geographical layout of the home during those final moments further underscores the tragic isolation of the event, with the caller indicating that she had been positioned out in the garage area while the man she cared for was located deep within the confines of his private home office. This physical separation between two people sharing the same residence highlights the quiet, hidden nature of personal despair, where immense suffering can take place just a few rooms away, completely masked by the routine noises of a household until it is tragically too late. The arrival of the first responders, signaled by the appearance of flashing emergency lights casting long shadows across the desert horizon, marked the definitive end of privacy and the beginning of a complex, heartbreaking investigation. When the local police officers stepped across the threshold of the Arizona residence, they were moving into a space frozen in the immediate wake of a profound personal catastrophe, where every detail would eventually be scrutinized by a grieving public. The bodycam footage captured by the arriving authorities provides an unvarnished, intensely somber look at the reality of first responders operating under highly stressful and delicate conditions. Upon discovering the body of the 67-year-old man in his office, the officers were forced to proceed with an abundance of professional caution due to the specific and dangerous circumstances surrounding the scene. The presence of the firearm still held in the late star's hand created a tense and highly sensitive environment where the natural biological processes of the human body post-mortem required the authorities to handle the situation with extreme care. This clinical, methodical response by law enforcement stands in stark contrast to the emotional devastation surrounding the home, illustrating the difficult dual reality of an event that is simultaneously a profound family tragedy and a formal police scene. It was during these initial, tense moments of assessment that the true identity of the deceased individual began to crystallize for the officers on the scene, transforming a standard emergency response into a moment of shocking cultural recognition. One of the first responders, looking closely at the face of the man in the office, realized that this was not an anonymous resident of Lake Havasu City, but a highly recognizable public figure whose face had been a staple of national television for over a decade. The officer instantly identified the man as Darrell Sheets, the larger-than-life personality who had captivated millions of viewers as one of the central figures on the hit reality series Storage Wars. The realization that this legendary television pioneer, known to fans worldwide as a boisterous, confident, and highly successful treasure hunter, had met such a tragic and solitary end sent an immediate wave of shock through the responding personnel. This sudden collision between the glamorous world of entertainment and the stark, painful reality of human suffering sets the stage for a deeper exploration into the hidden burdens that ultimately led to this heartbreaking conclusion. The shocking identification of the man inside the quiet Arizona home immediately transformed the nature of the investigation, as local authorities realized they were standing in the private sanctuary of a cultural icon. Darrell Sheets was not merely a participant in a television program, he was an elemental force who had helped define an entire genre of modern entertainment, a man whose brash confidence and sharp instincts made him an unforgettable presence on the airwaves. For 13 years, spanning over 160 episodes, global audiences had watched him navigate the competitive, high-stakes subculture of storage unit auctions with an unmatched swagger and an uncanny ability to spot hidden fortunes amid piles of discarded household goods. The contrast between that vibrant, larger-than-life television persona and the silent, tragic scene discovered by the Lake Havasu City police was both jarring and deeply tragic. As investigators began the meticulous process of documenting the scene, collecting physical evidence, and interviewing the deeply traumatized girlfriend, a much darker and more complex portrait of the star's final months began to take shape, revealing that the booming voice and confident smile masked a profound internal battle in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy. The distraught woman who had made the frantic call to emergency dispatch provided investigators with crucial context regarding the reality star's state of mind leading up to that fateful April morning. She made it explicitly clear to the responding officers that Sheets had not issued any explicit warnings or direct threats to end his own life prior to the incident, making the sudden act all the more devastating for those left behind. However, she did reveal a series of severe, compounding pressures that had been relentlessly eroding his well-being, painting a picture of a man pushed to his absolute limits by circumstances that remained largely invisible to his millions of fans. According to her detailed statements, Sheets had become increasingly frustrated and exhausted by a profound and chronic lack of sleep, a condition that can severely impair cognitive function, distort emotional resilience, and exacerbate even the minor anxieties of daily existence. This physical exhaustion was further complicated by deep-seated family troubles, a painful reality that his girlfriend bluntly described to the emergency operator as an accumulation of terrible, overwhelming difficulties that seemed to offer no easy resolution or escape. The investigation into the specific medical and psychological factors contributing to his distress revealed that Sheets had been waging a quiet, desperate war against severe insomnia for several months before his passing. The human body and mind require rest to heal and process the stresses of life, and when that vital necessity is denied week after week, the resulting psychological strain can become an unbearable weight to carry. His girlfriend explained to investigators that intense, relentless stress had trapped him in a vicious cycle, leaving him entirely unable to find the peaceful sleep he so desperately needed to restore his health and clarity of mind. On the morning of April 22nd, this overwhelming tide of exhaustion and anxiety culminated in a quiet, heartbreaking sequence of events within the home. The official reports indicate that Sheets had gently told his companion to go back to bed, a seemingly mundane request that masked a tragic finality, as she complied and returned to rest. Completely unaware that he was stepping into his private office to carry out an irreversible action that would soon end his suffering, the physical evidence left behind in the home office provided an even more explicit and chilling window into the specific source of the immense emotional pain that had driven the legendary treasure hunter to such a drastic conclusion. Beside his body, investigators discovered a formal suicide note, a piece of paper that served as a final, agonizing testament to the destructive power of modern digital culture and the real-world consequences of virtual malice. In the raw, unfiltered words of the note, Sheets explicitly directed his final thoughts toward an ongoing toxic campaign of cyberbullying that he had been subjected to on social media platforms. Specifically naming the relentless harassment he encountered on Facebook, the note contained a desperate, furious declaration that he simply could not endure the digital torment any longer, utilizing harsh, pained language to lash out at the individuals who had chosen to target him from behind the safety of their keyboards. This revelation sent shockwaves through the investigative team, exposing the fact that a man who had successfully navigated the cutthroat world of business and the intense scrutiny of national television could still be deeply wounded and broken by the malicious actions of online antagonists. As the details of the suicide note came to light, the legal and administrative apparatus of Lake Havasu City was forced to examine whether criminal charges could be brought against the individuals responsible for the systematic harassment described by the late star. The local police department thoroughly compiled the findings and passed the incident reports along to the Lake Havasu City Attorney's Office for a comprehensive legal review to determine if the online behavior crossed the line into criminal stalking or harassment. However, the pursuit of justice in the digital realm is a notoriously complex and frustrating endeavor, often stymied by jurisdictional boundaries, anonymity, and the high burden of proof required by the legal system. In this tragic instance, prosecutors ultimately determined that they had to pass on filing any formal charges related to the alleged bullying, explicitly stating that the case was structurally compromised by the very tragedy that initiated the investigation. Because Darrell Sheets had passed away, he was no longer capable of providing the vital context, specific documentation, and personal testimony required to definitively connect the digital harassment to the individuals involved. Leaving the investigation at a painful, legally insurmountable standstill, the reality that no legal recourse would be pursued added a layer of profound frustration to the immense grief surrounding the event, highlighting a systemic vulnerability that many public figures face in the age of instantaneous, unrestricted online communication. For a man who had spent his life engaging in face-to-face negotiations, trusting his instincts, and confronting rivals in the open arena of public auctions, the shadowy, unyielding nature of anonymous online hostility represented a completely different and far more insidious kind of conflict. The contrast between his public strength and his private vulnerability underscores a universal truth about the human condition, showing that professional success, financial security, and widespread fame offer absolutely no protection against the corrosive effects of targeted emotional abuse. As the community and the entertainment industry began to absorb the initial shock of the police revelations, attention naturally turned backward to examine the long, colorful, and triumphant journey of the man known to millions as the Gambler. seeking to understand how a life defined by such vibrant energy and incredible discoveries could arrive at such a somber and solitary crossroads. To truly comprehend the profound impact of Darrell Sheets' passing, one must look back at the incredible legacy he carved out over more than a decade as an undisputed titan of reality television. From the moment Storage Wars debuted on the A&E network in the year 2010, Sheets established himself as the beating heart of the series, a man whose instinct for the gamble and larger-than-life personality made him an instant fan favorite. Over the course of 13 years and a staggering 163 episodes, he anchored the program with an unyielding energy, turning the mundane act of bidding on abandoned storage lockers into a thrilling, high-stakes spectator sport. He was affectionately dubbed the Gambler, a title he wore proudly as he routinely risked thousands of dollars on nothing more than a momentary glance into a darkened concrete room, trusting his gut where others hesitated. His presence on the screen was defined by an infectious enthusiasm and a sharp, unfiltered wit that resonated deeply with viewers who saw him as an authentic representation of the American dream. A self-made entrepreneur who succeeded through sheer grit, determination, and an unwavering belief in his own abilities. The show became a global phenomenon, and at the center of that whirlwind was always Darrell, commanding the auction floor with his booming voice and a signature phrase that signaled to everyone around him that he was ready to risk it all for the next big score. His official biography on the network's website perfectly captured this legendary status, proudly touting his exceptional business acumen and a history of spectacular discoveries that sounded more like Hollywood fiction than reality. The network described a man who boasted a big game and was never slow to remind his competitors or the audience of the historic windfalls he had achieved through his decades in the storage auction trade. Among his most legendary achievements were the discovery of 4 genuine Picasso paintings hidden away in a forgotten locker, as well as the acquisition of what was widely considered the world's most lucrative and pristine comic book collection, an incredible find that solidified his reputation as a master treasure hunter. These massive, life-changing scores were not just victories for his business, they were moments of pure television magic that kept millions of viewers glued to their screens, wishing that they too could open a rusty padlock and find a fortune waiting in the shadows. This element of endless possibility was what made Sheets so captivating as a television personality, because he represented the eternal optimist, the man who looked at a pile of discarded junk and saw the distinct glint of hidden gold, inspiring an entire generation of pickers and antique enthusiasts to follow in his adventurous footsteps. Yet, the true emotional anchor of his journey on television was not the valuable items he uncovered, but the deeply personal partnership he shared on screen with his son, Brandon Sheets. For years, the dynamic between father and son provided the show with its most relatable and heartwarming moments, as Darrell mentored Brandon in the cutthroat mechanics of the auction world, passing down decades of hard-earned wisdom with a mixture of tough love and immense parental pride. Together, the father and son duo became a formidable team, navigating the intense rivalries of the auction circuit and celebrating their massive wins as a tight-knit family unit. This public display of familial solidarity made the later revelations of deep-seated family troubles all the more tragic for the public to process, as it became clear that the pressures of fame, time, and the inevitable shifting of personal dynamics had created painful fractures behind the scenes. The contrast between the united front seen on television and the devastating isolation described by his girlfriend in his final months reminds us that the bonds we celebrate on screen are subject to the same severe trials, heartbreaks, and emotional strains that affect everyday families, often magnified to an unbearable degree by the relentless pressures of a highly public existence. The vulnerabilities in Sheets' life became starkly apparent in the year 2019, a pivotal and terrifying moment that forced the reality star to confront his own mortality far away from the cameras. He suffered a massive heart attack that required immediate, intensive medical intervention, an event that sent a shockwave of concern through his global fan base and served as a harsh reminder of the physical toll that a high-stress, fast-paced lifestyle can inflict on the human body. This health crisis marked a major turning point for the veteran television star, prompting him to step back from the exhausting schedule of network production and seek a quieter, more grounded existence in the peaceful desert surroundings of Arizona. In the subsequent years, he channeled his enduring passion for unique items and community engagement into a local business venture, running a specialized shop in Lake Havasu City, appropriately named Havasu Show Me Your Junk. This business allowed him to maintain his connection to the world of vintage treasures and eccentric collectibles that he loved so dearly, while operating at a pace that was supposed to offer him a sanctuary of peace, stability, and local camaraderie away from the chaotic demands of Hollywood. Tragically, this geographical retreat could not protect him from the internal demons that had quietly haunted him throughout his life, battles that he had occasionally shared with his followers with a profound and heartbreaking honesty. In a powerful and deeply moving social media post from June of the year 28, Sheets had broken through the barrier of his confident television persona to speak with absolute candor about his long-standing struggles with severe depression. In that unforgettable message, he described depression not as a temporary sadness, but as the devil's way of attacking us, painting a vivid and terrifying picture of an illness that knows absolutely no mercy, systematically stealing an individual's smile, disrupting their most cherished relationships, and completely eroding their capacity for happiness. He warned his audience that this mental health battle is a relentless 24/7 war that allows absolutely no rest or respite for those who suffer beneath its weight, explicitly noting that it is a very real deal that can ultimately lead to suicide when the pain becomes too great to endure. His words carried a desperate, prophetic weight as he implored his followers to always practice kindness and empathy, urging them to understand that when someone reveals they are battling depression, they are spending every single minute of their lives simply struggling to breathe while enduring immense, invisible agony. The tragic conclusion of Darrell Sheets' life in the spring of 26 stands as a devastating testament to the accuracy of his own warnings, a heartbreaking reminder that the invisible wounds of the mind can be just as fatal as any physical ailment. The revelation that his final hours were poisoned by an unbearable campaign of online cyberbullying highlights a dark modern crisis that continues to claim lives across the globe, proving that even the most resilient, celebrated figures can be brought low by the toxic anonymity of digital harassment. His story forces a critical, collective reflection on the profound human cost of our current media culture, demanding a greater degree of accountability, compassion, and digital decency in how we interact with one another across virtual spaces. As we remember the vibrant spirit, the incredible discoveries, and the boisterous laughter of the man who defined an era of television, we must also honor his memory by taking his final messages to heart, looking past the confident exteriors of those around us to offer support and understanding to anyone who might be quietly drowning in the shadows of despair. For anyone out there who is currently navigating their own dark valley, feeling overwhelmed by stress, insomnia, or the heavy weight of isolation, please know that you do not have to carry this immense burden alone, and there is immediate, confidential support available to help you through your hardest moments. You are urged to reach out to the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting the dedicated number 988 within the United States, a completely free, confidential 24/7 resource where compassionate professionals are standing by to listen, support, and help you find the path back toward hope, healing, and peace. With additional online chat services readily accessible at